My name is Harrison Kennedy, and I don't believe in God. But I want to. I almost can't describe what I'm going through right now. Much like Immanuel Kant in response to David Hume's metaphysics, I've been awakened from my dogmatic slumber. I've heard almost every argument, almost every response. I've heard debates, lectures, listened to podcasts, read books, and yet I still find myself in the middle ground. Say, for example, the cosmological argument. If you accept the principle of sufficient reason, which means that every event or action or thing has a sufficient reason, everything has a cause, then it seems the universe too has a cause. Putting aside that the universe could be eternal, it seems like the universe must have been created. It must have a cause. And since we know that things cannot cause themselves, nor can their parts cause themselves, then it seems like something that's not the universe, not space, not time, and not matter, so something atemporal, aspatial, and not matter created the universe, was its cause. I think you can see where this is going. It seems like something that transcends all of these things did this. It seems like a God. But take the problem of evil, or maybe better called the problem of suffering. It says, if God is all loving, why is there so much suffering in the world? And I think Alex O'Connor does a really good job at focusing on gratuitous suffering. What is gratuitous suffering? Well, it's suffering that doesn't really seem to serve a purpose. Suffering that seems so insignificant that it really shouldn't be in our world if our God was all loving. Take, for example, a deer running away from a forest fire. A branch falls on its leg, breaking it, and it burns to death. It takes about 6 minutes. What purpose does that suffering serve? Many theists say that suffering in the world promotes higher order goods. So, for example, human free will, or the idea you can't have bravery without suffering, or courage without suffering, or good without evil. But it seems gratuitous suffering doesn't really fulfill a higher order good. What good is that deer dying fulfilling? And one might stick by this premise that these gratuitous events of suffering, they just promote a higher order good. That would be to say that the world has just enough suffering because it's necessary. That the world couldn't have more or less suffering, else it would be gratuitous. Now it seems intuitive that the world surely could have less suffering in it. One krill in the ocean could have lived a second longer. This just intuitively doesn't feel right, and I think it's one of the strongest arguments against religion. But one of the strongest arguments for religion and God and his existence is the teleological argument, better known as the fine-tuning argument. This argument says that the constants in the universe, which physicists agree, seem to be so delicately, so finely tuned for the existence of life. Constants like the strong or weak nuclear force, if they were off by even 1 × 10 to the 100,000th power, then it would be impossible for life to exist. It seems like this is by design. It seems like our world, our universe, is designed perfectly for life to exist. And you might be thinking this kind of mimics the argument that, say you arrive on a stranded island. You pull your kayak up on the sand. Say there's a forest on the island. You walk into it. And you look down and you pick up a watch in your hand. A watch on this island. It's a fully functioning watch. What assumption do you make? Well, of course you make the assumption that someone must have been there. After all, that watch is designed. So say a traveler stumbles upon the universe. It sees how perfectly designed it is. Would they not think of a creator? Would they not think that a God designed this universe? I think this argument has very few weak points, and I think it makes a very strong case for the existence of God. So, where do we find ourselves now? We find ourselves with very strong points against the existence of God, but very strong points for the existence of God. And I feel stuck between the two, each pulling me either way almost equally. I don't have definitive answers to say that God definitely doesn't exist. But I also don't have definite answers to say he does. I feel so static, which is why I've chosen to pursue this. This is the reason I was awoken from my dogmatic slumber. It seems I need to take action. It seems I need to search or launch an inquiry. The God inquiry. Because for about a few weeks I've been wrestling with another problem. An argument I didn't bring up earlier. The problem of divine hiddenness. Now basically this problem says that if God is all-loving, all-powerful, omniscient, then why wouldn't he reveal himself to more people? Why hasn't he revealed himself to me? And I've heard countless debates on this problem. Countless points being brought up, but let me raise a question. What if this problem isn't external? What if we shouldn't be projecting it onto God? What if this is an internal problem? What if we're the ones hiding? That is what awoke me. What if I'm hiding from the most powerful and loving being I would ever meet? What if I'm hiding from that relationship? So I've decided, unlike many atheists I see in debates, many agnostics who are static, who have a foundational irreverence towards religion, who say even if it was proven true, they still wouldn't believe in it. How disgusting is that? How static is the internal framework of your mind? How decided are you on the biggest question in the world? My disgust for that response has led me to launch this inquiry. I'm going to search every corner of the globe, every corner of the pages in the Bible and of Scripture, every corner of others, and every corner of myself in search of God. I'm going to do what most won't, what most haven't. I'm going to genuinely commit myself to this endeavor. I've resolved to search until I find something. Whether it take 10 days, 10 months, or 10 years, I will search. I'm going to do this in 3 different ways. The first being Scripture. Right now my camera is actually propped up on the ESV Study Bible. I don't know if that is a sin, or if you're not supposed to prop cameras on top of Bibles, but it is. I'm meaning to say that I bought a Bible, and I intend on reading it. I've already started at Genesis, and I plan to read cover to cover. I plan to read the historical context, the linguistics, the explanations, the interpretations. All of this is offered in a study Bible. I found it appropriate, since I don't have much background, to fully immerse myself in the text. But I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to search others. I want to sit face to face with Christian apologists, with theists, atheists, agnostics, priests, non-believers. I want to have conversations about faith, about God, His existence or His non-existence. I think in others we can find truth. I don't think truth is inherently a logical proof or a well-formed argument. I think you can find truth in laughter, in tears, in the spaces between people's words. But I think most importantly, I'm going to search myself in this world. The third category being personal experience. I've heard so many stories about revelations where people see God, see Jesus, they meet Him. They experience something science can't explain. I've never experienced that. So I intend to pray. I intend to actually pray for the first time in my life. To try to speak to God and genuinely ask Him questions. Cultivate a relationship, even if it means I have to sit in silence for hours. My search is genuine, and I will not stop. I'm going to search the world. Of course I would. I think this often goes overlooked. I'm going to search the forests, the lakes, the rivers, the streams, the fish, the birds, the sky. I'm going to search what Christians call God's glorious creation. But I want to make something very clear. I'm not here to prove people wrong. I'm not here to foster hatred towards beliefs or act like I have any answers. I'm here to relentlessly ask questions, to admit my ignorance. I'm not here to debate. I'm not here to catch logical fallacies in one another's statements. I'm here to find God. And I think if I do that sincerely, and if He is out there listening right now, and He knows I'm searching, then surely He'll reveal Himself to me. I'm not creating this for any other reason besides that. I don't care how many views this video gets, the number of likes, how much attention I can gain from this video. That's far from it. I want to account my experience, to have a detailed documentation of my search for God, because I think it could help others, whichever answer I find. I think there's a lot here. So if you're like me, if you can't quite believe yet, if you're troubled, if you want to believe, or if you're just interested to see if I can find an answer, I ask you to join me. Because I think in the end, I'll find something. I think at the end of the God inquiry, there will surely be an answer. So God, if you're listening right now, just know I'm searching, and know that I intend to find an answer.